What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Can I Get More Podcast in My Monitor. I'm Johnny Ruckus. How's it going, everybody? Let's see. It is April 26th today. Looks like a nice day out. Which is wonderful. Hope everybody's week has been going okay. Sip of coffee there. Gonna need the juice today. Well, I just want to start first by saying I started learning a new song this week, and it's not a new song. It's not even a song by a real band. It's from a soundtrack. That Thing You Do. I love that. I love that soundtrack. The whole soundtrack. It's like my favorite soundtrack. How many more times can I say soundtrack? No, but I'm learning That Thing You Do. I got it figured out. I almost was gonna start putting together like a heavy version of it, but I don't know if I'm gonna do that or not. It sounds real good with some gain on it, though. I could tell you that right now. Yeah, so that's a fun song. I really enjoy it. I'm crazy enough where I might just figure out the whole soundtrack. I might not. I don't know. But that song is a good start. There's a bunch of awesome tunes from that movie. Some of the, probably the best written songs. And no lie. Yeah. Everybody's like, what are you talking about? I think. I don't know. I don't know what the census, opinion on That Thing You Do is, but if it's not positive, then you're wrong. Everybody has an opinion, but yours is wrong. Another music news right quick. Derek Jones from the band Falling in Reverse passed away at 35. Not a Falling in Reverse fan, but 35. You know, I just had a birthday. I just turned 38. And you know, a younger guy, I don't know the circumstances, and that's fine. I don't need to. But I'm sure he was a giant part of that band. So, you know, a loss in the music community, regardless of if you like them, know them, don't like them, whatever, doesn't matter. It still sucks. You know, we are all a community. And when we lose one of our own, it's not cool. So I'll shout out to Derek Jones and his family as well, and the Falling in Reverse family. You know, rest in power, man. All right, moving on. We like I have a conglomerate of people here. I don't know if that was the right word, but it was big and it sounded good. Coffee. I am going to talk about playing guitar with feel typically, but it goes for any instrument again, versus being more of like a theorized player. I have a certain example that I'm going to touch on later. I'll go into it, but what is feel? What is feel when you're playing guitar? Or any instrument, I should say. Everyone has their own feel. This can come from different things, or this can mean different things. Feel can mean that you have a certain way that you can express certain emotions through playing. Or you're able to get an emotional response from whoever's listening. You know, something that really makes you feel it in your chest or whatever. It can also mean how a guitar feels in your hand. You know, is it comfortable? Do you connect with it? I've had tons of guitars over my lifetime, and you know, it's been a kind of a rotating thing. I kind of cycle them in and out quite a bit because what happens is, you get drawn to certain things while you're in the music store or whatever. And then once you get more time with it where you actually are able to like apply it to what you do rather than just being in a music store, you end up not connecting with it. The most expensive guitar I've ever bought. It had a ton of options. You could get any tone out of it. By the end of the day, I didn't connect with it. But yet, like I mentioned on the last episode, that Squire 51, it just kind of fell in my lap. Just found it. I bonded with that thing right away, and I've modded the hell out of it. But I put 8 great gauge strings on it this week or last week, and I've been playing the hell out of it. So, but then I've had another Squire 51. Actually, I think it was from the same year, but it was the same run, and I didn't connect with that one. So, go figure. But what I'm referring to today is how a person actually plays the music that they're playing. It's like it's your own interpretation of what music is you're playing, regardless if you wrote it, you had a friend write it, bandmate write it, or if it's like doing a cover song. Everybody kind of has their own way of playing it, and that is a person's individual feel. That can include like pushing and pulling of the tempo. So you might play a note a little bit before, like the 1, for instance, or the downbeat. Maybe there's a part in the song where you fall back behind the beat a little bit. That's part of feel. Drummers, that's a lot part of their feel. If they feel like a certain section needs just a little bit of a push, I mean, when you start speeding up, that's a different thing. But, if you're playing, let's say you are playing to a click track. I know a lot of drummers are probably like, oh, my soul. I get it. But it's important. Y'all know it. But if you're playing on a click, maybe you get a little bit ahead. Maybe in the pre-chorus, you pull a little bit ahead, and then maybe you settle back in right on the beat, and then maybe in the verse, there's a little section where you get back behind the beat a little bit, just because that's how you feel, that's how you interpret how that part, or what should happen in that part is what I'm trying to say. That's all part of an individual feel. That could be, another thing, like when you're playing guitar, that could be playing a chord that might not necessarily fall in the scale. Maybe you're playing in, I don't know, A minor, call it, blah, 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 whatever it may be, or A major. And then, like E majors would be in that scale. But let's say there's a part and you decide you want to play an E minor, and it'll stick out, but it's also a focal point. It could be just how, that's just how you feel it in that moment. That part of the song, man, I really think this thing needs to be minor right here, so you put it in. It doesn't fall in the scale of A major, but that's how you feel it. And that'll in turn create an emotional response, because those things will stick out. Even if a person isn't a musician, those parts stick out because it's different. It's a nice thing, but that's part of feel. Feel is also how a note is bent, or how your vibrato is, and then also in turn, part of that is the DNA of what makes a certain player. BB King, for instance, he does the vibrato, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's BB King, or he does the bend. That's BB King. You can tell. Same with like Eric Clapton, for instance, the way he bends a note or how his runs are put together, you can tell that's him. Those little those little things are just little sprinkles of their DNA on that part of the music. You can tell it's them, but that's also how they interpret it. That's how they feel it. Another part would be like how your fingers slide up and down the fretboard. There's some people that you can hear the up and down the fretboard if they're changing, chords up and down the fretboard. Excuse me. Other players, there's nothing of that. Sometimes that's edited out, which is fine, but a lot of times that's just how that player plays. Maybe that can be interpreted as being a little tighter. It's a million things. My hands scratch all over it. So I'm not a super duper tight player either, but that's all part of the feel. All these things that come out of your soul and through your fingers, that's what makes the guitar sound like you. There's been plenty of stories, for instance, like when Van Halen was first starting to, do stuff or whatever, become bigger, become known. There was a lot of people that were like, oh, if I was playing through that rig, I could sound just like that. And I think I remember one with like Ted Nugent or something like that. Like he said something like that, and then he plugged into that rig, and he sounded like Ted Nugent. He didn't sound like Eddie Van Halen. He sounded like himself. At that time, obviously, he knew what he was doing, but it's a little ignorant to, if you plug into all the stuff that Eddie Van Halen goes, but he's not playing it. You are. You'd think you'd sound like yourself, but those are opinions that are made to be proven wrong, I guess. Like I said before. Coffee. How I play guitar, how my feel ends up being is I tend to like pull the tempo along. So if something is, again, I tend to play like the first note a little bit before that that down a one. It's just in there. That's what my guitar playing self wants to do a lot. There's a lot of times it feels strange to play right on that downbeat. I kind of want to jump the beat, as I kind of started referring to it. I'm sure I got it. I'm sure I hacked it from somebody. But I like to jump the beat when I play. I also have a tendency to overbend notes if I'm playing a solo, which is rare. I'm typically a rhythm guitar player. But I have a tendency to overbend notes, and sometimes it's real ridiculous, where I just kind of end up in that middle part. But then there's other times where you can get it and it sounds good, and it'll sound fine. Even if you play a wrong note, it'll sound fine as long as you resolve it. I went to college for guitar for only a short period of time. It's one of the things I remember from one of the instructors. He said, you can play any note you want as long as you resolve it. It'll make it sound like you intended to do it. And it's very true. But I like overbending notes sometimes because it gives there's tension there then. And then it also sticks out. I just watched something on BB King, bring him up again, where he was playing, and there was like whole phrases where he was a little bit out of tune because of the bends and the vibrato and stuff like that. It doesn't matter, because that's how he felt. and that's what his soul went through his fingers into that guitar, and that's what his hands needed to sing at that moment. He was a very vocal, expressive guitar player, where meaning that his guitar, he made it sound like it was singing, which is kind of the what it's supposed to do anyway, especially when you're soloing and stuff like that. That's supposed to be like another melody. You can kind of dream of what melody and how it needs to be sung, but through the strings and through your hands and all that stuff on the guitar. So you can, if you made it, if you have a sad song, you can make it sound sad. If you have a happy song, you can make it sound happy. You can bend the notes, you can vibrate the notes just like a voice. And that's one of the most fantastic things about guitar, but I'm going off on a tangent again, but that's all right. Also, another part of my feel, excuse me, is when I plug into a guitar, if I have it, if I have it on the distortion channel or whatever, it just kind of explodes, just kind of burn. It's how you can't describe it, but for whatever reason, my hands, when I hit the guitar, it really yells. It sounds really dumb. And I've tried to tell people that, and they kind of look at me weird, which is, I'm used to that. But it's true. The guitar always, I don't know, I think it's just the way I really attack the guitar. And and especially when I have it in a loud amp, I just want to just mash the thing, and it gets angry. Gets really pissed off. And a lot of times too, is I've been actually searching for a way to, I don't know, fix it. I don't think fix it is the right word, but I think harness it. It seems that everything that I play has an angry tone to it. Doesn't matter if I'm playing something in a major key where it's supposed to sound happy. It always has this angry edge to it, this sad edge to it. And for a long time, I thought that was just, you just dial up the mid or the treble a little bit and whatever. But, excuse me, I've been learning that is not the case. A lot of that's from feel. But you can also change your feel. In fact, like I said, with my Squire, or my 51, I put 8-gauge strings on it. That forces you to play different. I'm used to using relatively heavy strings. I use the Ernie Ball. Shout out to Ernie Ball. The skinny top, heavy bottom, which is a 10 on the top, and then a 52 on the bottom. So it's kind of a hybrid set. But for like playing like rock music and metal music and stuff like that, and jumping around and being really aggressive with the guitar, I kind of need those heavier strings, and helps it keep in tune. So if I played 8s when I'm playing drop D and really going for it, I'm going to have issues. It's not going to stay in tune, and I'm going to break a lot of strings. I used to break a lot of strings when I used 10, just regular standard 10-gauge strings. So I don't break quite as many strings as I used to. But getting back to what I'm talking about with string guitars with different strings, I took my Strat and I put 9s on it. So that's a 9 to 42. The 8 is a 8 to 30, 8 to 38. You learn to play, you got to play different. You have to change your feel. I have to play a little lighter. The strings are easier to bend. So I have to be real mindful of how hard I bend them, because it's not hard at all. I've been playing the heavier gauge strings for so long. It's not hard to overbend that at all. I also have to lighten up the how hard I fret the notes. It was really quite aggressive. But I also, now I'm changing my feel a little bit. Whereas I know I don't have to fret the notes quite as hard because they will bend out of tune with those lighter strings. But in turn, when I play my guitar with the 52s on them, I'm starting to adopt that feel of not choking the guitar and killing it because I don't have to. And it's taken a long time because there's a lot of time just playing shows and loud that you just, you feel it and you dig in. And that's just kind of how it turns out that's how you end up playing. So now I'm kind of reteaching myself with this time, not only that I haven't been in a band, but then just trying to do different things and kind of think a little bit more. You don't have to hammer your way through everything. I carry a sledgehammer over in my hand and a guitar over my shoulder, You don't have to do that. So it's changing my feel. And in turn, I think I'm starting to be able to play things that don't necessarily sound so angry. But I'm teaching myself that you have to play with a little bit more dynamics, even in between the phrases. And these are, I'm sure somewhere down the line I'll get into this more, but this is all part of feel. How hard you naturally hit the strings, where you pull back, where you really dig in. These are all parts of feel. Reminds me of, I know I mentioned B.B. King a few times here again, and I'm going to again. I read something or saw a video or something. I can't quite remember. I tried to find it because I wanted to reintroduce it into my head, but I couldn't find it. So I'm just going to kind of shoot from the hip. He was, playing one of those, either the benefits or, something like that, where they have or some sort of festival where they have all sorts, it's a guitar festival or whatever. So you get all these different guitar players to come and play. They typically just put it at the end of the night. Everybody kind of gets on stage. You got this person. I don't remember who else was there, but there was I guess, he was an older gentleman at this time anyways. So, but he comes out and there's, younger dude rips. Another younger dude just freaking shredding. These are all blues guys, but they play a bunch of notes, and then there's a guy not quite super old, but not as young as these other guys. And he rips too, just a whole bunch of notes. So they're ripping, they're, doing all their stuff. They're playing all the notes that they can. Ripping. People have been subject to that for, whatever it was, probably 5-10 minutes at that point. Just ripping solos, and that's friggin' awesome. Then here comes B.B. King. Well, what is he going to do? What's he going to do that's going to, quote unquote, outshine all these people who've played all these amazing phrases and notes and awesomeness? He finds that one note. He finds that one note and just bends the hell out of it. He does the vibrato that he can do. One note. And it brings the house down. And I don't remember if he walked off stage, but I think that pretty much called an end to, and then they finished up the song, whatever they had to do. One note, probably held it out for 5 seconds, whatever, and then it was deuces, I'm out. It was awesome. But that's what he wanted to do, or that's what he felt he was really good at, is finding that one note that went into your soul and then made you want to cry. He found that emotional, he was able to connect that note to your emotions, and it was over. And what else are you going to do after that? What, are you going to go back to playing a bunch of notes? No, it's over. It's over. It's part of B.B. King's feel. And he also said that he was a singer. He was never really a guitar player. That's why you never saw him play chords. He'd play, some phrases basically in the blues pentatonic, but he was able to make them things sing in a certain way that only he could. Describing his feel. Feel's developed with experience. It's developed with playing with people over time, playing different styles of music, and you also, from playing with people, I said this on a previous show. When you play with people that are better than you, it makes you better. But there's a lot of things that get learned without actually someone going, now this is what this is how I do it, this is how you should do it. You learn through like osmosis almost, where it's someone can play something and you just pick it up and it speaks to you. They don't have to explain it, but it speaks to you. And you learn it, and then there's other things that get learned without you actually even know you learned it. Certain little parts on how to play certain things in a certain moment, you pick them up. You pick that up. You don't know where it came from, but all of a sudden you're like, whoa, where'd it come from? Happens all the time. Experience, I think, is one of the biggest things, though. Feel is the DNA that you leave on a riff. I know I kind of mentioned DNA a little bit before. But ultimately, feel is your instincts of what your hands ultimately want to do with the guitar. Your instincts get developed over a whole bunch of playing, bunch of time, experience, and then they become natural. Those things end up what naturally comes out, that comes in your, comes out of your hands, comes out of your soul, out of your hands, into the guitar, through the amp or whatever. Your head tells you where to start. And it also tells you where you're going next. But your feel decides how you're going to get there. You can go A to B. You got to go A to B, B to C, yada, yada, yada. But your feel, in turn, dictates of how you get from A to B. It's all the little things in there. They're also theory-based players. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here too. From what I've seen, it seems as though they want to always play within the certain rules of theory. There's a reason that these rules, quote unquote, are there. They work. They make sense. But sometimes you got to play outside that box. And there's theory. There's people that live in theory that it makes them anxious. Don't necessarily want to do that. It needs to be like, this is this, and that is that. And that's what it is. seems to me a lot of times people who put themselves in that box kind of they just need to get out of their own way. And what that means is that the guitar is always supposed to get an emotional response. It's kind of why you play it. It makes you say things you can't say with your voice. It helps you if you feel a certain way to write songs how you feel at that point. And if you're always in your own head, a lot of times you can't get to those emotional parts. They don't always act as one. I have a perfect example of all these things of how I do one thing and then somebody does another thing. I'm sure he'll appreciate me talking about him, but my buddy Ryan, he's my best friend, he's my brother. We've known each other forever. Played a bunch of music together. Created a whole bunch of shenanigans together. What up? But we are exactly what I'm talking about right now. I'm in the feel area of guitar where I get led to the next section. You know, the steps I get to get to the next section of a song may not necessarily be wow, I can talk. Theoretically correct. But that's what is being depicted through my soul into my hands through the guitar. Whereas Ryan, it's got to be exactly what the theory says it's supposed to be. So, as I'll say the example I was talking about before, if I'm playing an A major and I feel like playing an E minor, no, mm-mm, and it will drive him crazy. And I'll go, well, actually, that was supposed to be an E major there. Yeah, I didn't want it to be that way. Yeah, but it's supposed to be an E major there. It never comes to blows. And I understand what where he's coming from. But he might not necessarily know what it or where I'm coming from. And I put him in in situations a few different times, whereas I'll be playing something and I'll be like, hey, just rip a solo. Yeah, he's not able to improvise. He's not able to. He can do a little thing, but he definitely would not be happy with it. He has to. Let's say I'm playing a rhythm part. I'll have to put the rhythm part down, and then he takes it and puts it in his program and gets it notated out exactly how it should be. And then he will write the solo to that. So it's perfectly in time, which is fine. You know, as I write stuff, I got a click. I have, all that stuff, the tempo mapped out, all that kind of stuff. But he will rehearse and practice and write the solo to exactly what's in his program, his guitar program. And he will sculpt this thing. And they turn out fantastic. He will sell himself short, but he is a very good guitar player. He's a very good musician. He just missed a couple of things along the way, but we won't talk about that right now. he knows what they are, and he's probably cursing. He's probably cursing my existence as we speak. But I'm not going to out you, brother. Not completely. But he will rehearse this thing and write it and get it to exact specs. And it will be all theoretically correct. And if there's this part that he can't figure out why it works, but it works, he will drive himself crazy by going through all these things in his brain. He's a smart guy. Dumbest smart guy I know. But he will go through all these things and figure out why this theoretically works. Not just trust his ear, trust his instincts, trust his gut, but he will have to get his head to match what's in his gut. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of fucking time, man. And there are points where you can squeeze the feeling out of it. But that's the kind of person he is. Everything's got to be logical. He's got to figure out why it works. Not just it works. I'm not sure exactly why, but it feels good and I like it. Why does it work? You know, and I was thinking about this. And we play guitar and we play music a lot of how we live our lives. And it was a weird realization to figure it out. But what I'm saying is, I'm not disciplined at all, really, about much. I'm not like the absolute neatest person, but he's those opposite things. And he's also in his head. He's very smart. Again, the dumbest smart guy I know. He has a lot of world knowledge. He's very well read. He keeps up with current events. He reads all the information he can about a subject. And somehow he's able to retain a lot of it. I don't read. I don't keep up with current events. A lot of those things that I know that if it feels funky, it probably is funky. But he knows it's funky and he'll tell you why it's funky. And I've told him this too. I said a lot of times he does not trust his instincts. He second guesses himself a lot. He second guesses himself when he plays guitar. He downgrades how good of a guitar player he is because he actually is a very, very good guitar player. But he doesn't trust his instincts. He does that kind of in life too. But this kind of went in a weird way, but it was all relative to this because it was a realization of when I was trying to write the notes to all this, just to kind of try to get some of my my thoughts in order. Kind of a realization. We do a lot of things different, but we're brothers. And that wouldn't change. Yeah, I play a lot with feel. My gut kind of tells me where I need to go next. There is theory in there, and this goes to what I was talking about a little bit earlier about learning stuff that you don't necessarily know you learn. It just kind of goes in there. Theory is a lot that way. You can really sit down with books and all sorts of stuff and really like be well read in it and know exactly how to apply everything. And then there's things that you just learn over time with experience. Playing with people that are better than you. That's going to be the theme, I think, for as long as I talk about guitar playing and stuff like that. Always learning and playing with people that are better than you. You absorb some of this theoretical stuff. I know which parts of a major scale in the scale. I know which chords are major, minor, diminished. I know all that stuff. That's basic, And I know some scales and I know how to get from A to B. It's just stuff you learn. And then there's other stuff that, like I was telling you about me teaching myself how to not play so hard by playing lighter gauge strings, stuff like that. You can alter your feel, but it's all part of the feel. I think I did mention earlier in one of the shows that I've learned more about theory and probably the last like whatever weeks prior to that than I had in a long time, which is also true. I keep learning different things. So I know I kind of came off as, you should only play with feel, and if your theory, you're doing yourself a disservice. That's not the case. Theory definitely helps you get from A to B quicker. There's a lot less messing around. If you develop your ear, you can figure things out a lot easier. It is good to have all that stuff just be able to, you can just pull it out of the Rolodex in your head at a moment's notice, figure out how things work, what chord should go where. There's a reason theory is made. It's because it sounds how it's supposed to sound. And you know why it sounds like that. It sounds how it's supposed to sound because it's supposed to sound like that, but you know why. Follow the bouncing ball. So the real trick is, and again it comes back to experience, is knowing your theory by being able to put feel with that. You have to be able to do both. Somebody can sound super technical when they play. They can know all the stuff. They have all the scales. But if it's all one, there's no dynamics in it. It sounds like a robot. Well, but if you can do some crazy runs like that and then make a bend that'll make you cry, oh boy, it's over. It's over. Trying to think of, I mentioned B.B. King. Clapton has a certain feel. He was able to play a lot more notes than B.B. King, but he has a certain way. I guess more modern would be like Slash. Bending notes and everything. He makes you feel. His guitar sings. When he plays those solos, his guitar sings, and it can make you feel something. But if you, I'm not ragging on the guy because obviously he's one of the greatest guitar players ever, but not my jam. It's like Steve Vai, for instance. He can play a million notes a second, but it's all saying the same thing. Blah. I don't know if it's saying that. I just felt like doing that for some reason. But yeah, you got to be able to do both. And it takes a long time to develop. We're always developing. Musicians, you can never stop learning. What do they say? If you stop learning, you start dying. It's the same thing. It's the same with anything, but it's the same thing with guitar. If you stop learning, you regress. Because people will always keep learning and they will pass you by and not look back. So you got to keep learning, keep getting more experienced, play with people that are better than you. And you just got to feel it, man. Easier said than done. but you just got to feel it, man. All right. Well, I think I'm going to call it there. I appreciate everybody who listens, watches. Every week, every Sunday, I drop. I think that's the correct terminology. I drop a new show. I do want to have guests on. I'm sure people are getting sick of me just rambling about nonsense and stumbling over words and sound, I guess I haven't had to read too much, but that's also a fun thing to listen to me read out loud. But I do want to have guests as soon as this rigmarole is over. I could do Skype, I suppose, but I would rather sit down with the person. I've never done Skype. I've heard a bunch of Skype interviews. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I would much rather just sit with somebody, That's the best way, I think. You get their vibe. Plus, then I get to hang out with my friends and people who I admire. That's awesome. So, all right, people, I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. This has been episode 5 of Can I Get More Podcasts in My Monitor? I'm Johnny Ruckus. Everybody have a good night.